Yeah, so like she said, I work for Elanco Animal Health. We're the animal health division of Eli Lilly and Company, based just outside of Indianapolis. So my talk today, due to proprietary confidentiality reasons, I can't talk specifically about the research and development that we're doing at Elanco, but I will talk in more general terms about our industry and the challenges for our industry, and provide you with where I see opportunities for nanotechnology to overcome some of those challenges. And the goal really is to just facilitate discussion back and forth between you guys who are doing the research and discovering some of these technologies and us who have the challenges to overcome. So if there are any questions during the talk, please feel free to stop me and we can make it more of a discussion. So I've divided the talk into 3 sections. One is the present, so the agriculture industry and what the challenges are right now. I'll talk a little bit next about the past and what we know from history in terms of overcoming those challenges, but then talk a little bit more about the future and what nanotechnology's potential role is in overcoming those challenges. So the present. What do we know about the agriculture industry and the challenges that we face right now? A lot of the challenges that we face in the world are common to what we face in the agriculture industry. I've listed a lot of them here. Climate change, urbanization. We as humans want to build more buildings and take up more land space. Sustainable use of resources. So if you think about food animals, we put a lot of resources in to get the output. But it's not very efficient, so there's a lot of animal waste that's created, and the environmental impact of that. I think the most important, the one that I highlight, is the growing food demand due to the increase in people in the world. So I'll double click on that a little bit and talk a little bit more about that in detail. So food economics and world hunger. I don't know if it's ironic or coincidental that I'm right before lunch, but world hunger is obviously a major issue, almost a crisis in the world right now, and will only continue to get worse as more people exist in the world. So as of December 2008, an estimated 963 million people in the world were malnourished. Most importantly in this slide is that the world population it's estimated to get to around 9 billion by 2050. And that will require an estimated 100% more food than what we have right now. So just to repeat that, in 50 years, 100% more food will be required. What is estimated is that 70% of that will rely on technology. So we can't rely on more land, we can't rely on more animals. We're going to have to rely on more technology to make what we have right now more efficient. The major challenges in optimizing land for farming are balancing the impact on the environment. So we want to keep the world around for many generations, but also the reallocation right now of cropland for biofuels. So the big question, along with the environmental impact, is can we find a way to be energy independent, but also feed the world. So it's food versus energy and how we find that balance. In 2008, our industry was hit really hard with growing corn prices, and I'm sure John from Dow can speak to that pretty well also, but our producers were in the red all of 2008 and 2009 due to corn prices. And that price went up, obviously, due to the demand for biofuels. So if you think about the farms right now, they've really gone from small, kind of independent, family-operated businesses into large manufacturing sites. So as an engineer, I consider the animal production industry now as a large manufacturing site. So if you think about there's input, grains, energy, and drugs, which is what we provide the therapies to keep the animals healthy, and the goal is the output, which is the animal-based protein to feed people. And to summarize, the main challenges and what we need to do with this manufacturing site is maximize yield, minimize the raw materials, minimize the input, but also minimize the environmental impact, so minimize the waste, as well as maximize safety. So we heard from the USDA earlier today the importance of food safety as well. So that was where we are right now and the challenges for the agriculture industry today. What we know about the past is that technology has played a large role in improving our industry even in the past 50, 60 years. Many technologies have been developed to increase productivity but reduce inputs already. So the best way to highlight this, I think, is with this graph. So if you look at, we're basically showing farm productivity and the changes from, I believe, 1948 to 1994, where 1948 is in the blue, and that's been normalized to 100. The y-axis is basically farm productivity. And you can see all industries have increased significantly from 48 to 1994, where on the far right, that's the entire agriculture industry that's increased by 145%. So therapies, technologies, ways to increase efficiency of protein production in an animal have gotten us very far, but not far enough. So these are just more examples of how technology has increased production. I'll just go through a couple of them. Modern feeding practices and efficiency-enhancing feed additives have enabled cattle growers to grow their cattle on 2/3 less land, and that's compared to what we now call all natural or organic farms. Farmers can produce 58% more milk with 64% fewer cows than dairy farmers in 1944, and that's due to, obviously, the technology and therapies that our industries have produced for them. I think it's important to highlight that choice is very important, so organics and that type of things, they have their place in the market, and people who can't afford them should be able to purchase them, obviously. But in order to keep costs down for people of lower socioeconomic backgrounds, it's important for technology to increase our efficiency. And also the environmental impact of food production. We've shown that the technologies to increase efficiency of animals can actually decrease the impact to the environment in terms of waste and greenhouse gases. So to summarize, in terms of the past, we've come a long way, but we must continue to innovate to meet the global food demand for the next 40 years and obviously beyond. I think it's a social responsibility that we all have to provide food to people that's not only safe but also affordable so that everyone can access it. So the question is, what does nanotechnology play in the future of agriculture, and where does it fit? What are the opportunities for nanotechnology? I just wanted to quickly highlight that nanotechnology has been used in food. A lot of it is around delivery of food once it's processed and ready to be consumed, as well as during storage. Not a lot has been done on the animal health side in terms of the production of protein. That's all still in early phase research and development. So some of the opportunities for nanotechnology in animal health are, as I've said many times, to improve feed efficiency and nutrition of animals. So you'll see that in all of these opportunities, the key options for nanotechnology are usually around controlled delivery or diagnostics, but nanoscale food delivery systems, not for food for people, but the food for the animals, to improve their nutrition, their efficiency, is a large space for our industry. As well as on the discovery side, I think the more that antibiotic resistance becomes a concern, the more that hormones in foods become a concern, the more innovation that we're going to have to do in our industry to provide alternatives to antibiotics that still get the same kind of an outcome that antibiotics do right now. So not just increasing efficiency and productivity of the animal, but also preventing disease, or at least being able to provide therapies for disease, is a large space right now for nanotechnology. On the diagnostics front, but again, also on controlled delivery of therapies. And I think we also heard the word theragnostics previously as well. So I can drill down a little bit into requirements for a diagnostics test in animal health. It's a little bit different than what we would expect for human health, just because the industry itself is different. Some of them are similar. One of the main differences we see on the animal health side is a need for low cost. So if we consider costs for a diagnostic, what our company has estimated a producer would pay would be less than $3 for dairy, and for poultry less than 3 cents a bird. So there are a lot of birds out there in these poultry farms. So you can see how we are tied to cost drastically. But the potential for nanotechnology is to be able to mass manufacture some of these diagnostic tools and allow us to drive costs down. Obviously, sensitivity and specificity is necessary, and I think some of them are very consistent with what we would expect for human health, but also for animal health. Which one's the pointer? The ability to conduct tests without the need for local reagents, water, or specialized laboratory equipment, so that the producer could actually do the diagnostic test on site. So basically out on the farm if needed. And the ability to detect multiple pathogens and distinguish between pathogens, because there are a lot of different diseases that we're dealing with in animal health. Additional opportunities that I see for nanotechnology in the animal health field is around product safety. So we've talked a little bit about this morning, but foodborne illness is obviously a major concern for all of us, and specifically E. coli 0157H7. So I won't get into the stats of that too much, but the way we see the U.S. food safety landscape right now is that the customer needs multiple food safety interventions. So we can't just rely on one intervention, and I can show you a schematic of what we have right now. And basically the cost of food safety to the producer, I mean, obviously we think of food safety and the end user as the consumer, and the cost of that is obviously health, but the cost of that to the producer and the loss of their animals that they want to put into the food chain for us is very significant as well. And just, again, the opportunities for nanotechnology and food safety also very consistent in diagnostics and controlled delivery and targeted delivery as well. So this is kind of our food safety platform that I can share with you and what we're considering right now. There are 4 different times to intervene, with the live animal, pre-harvest, post-harvest, and then at the product. Where we have products right now are at pre-harvest and post-harvest, where our pre-harvest products are out for poultry and beef, and those are phage technologies specific to E. coli 0157. And the post-harvest technologies that we have are more chemical-based, where they would be drenched on the carcass after slaughter. But there are also opportunities, like I said, in the live animal, as well as the product. And again, requirements for food safety diagnostics are very similar to the diagnostics in a live animal for disease, but the real-time speed and being able to distinguish between pathogens is very important. We talk about sample prep a lot, and how basically if we can get the sample prep as simple as possible, that would be ideal, so that the technology could be used on site. And then just a couple of more opportunities for nanotechnology in animal health. Reproduction and fertility is a big one. It's important, especially for dairy and for swine, to organize and regulate the cycles as much as they can, so the producer can predict when it's time. We now have hormone implants, but if they could better regulate cycles either with controlled release or improved bioavailability, that would be ideal. Importantly, I bring up, not just for animal reproduction, but for diseases as well, smart drug delivery systems. So if you think about an animal producer, and this is where we're somewhat different from humans, but bringing an animal in to dose them either with an injectable or a topical is very stressful for that animal. So if we could minimize the amount of times we need to do that and have potentially an implant that could deliver either through self-regulated manners or producer-regulated manners, vaccines and therapies when they're needed, and reduce the amount of times that an animal will have to come in for dosing, that will decrease the stress of an animal and naturally increase their immune system, and they'll be more productive in that way. We talk a little bit also about identity preservation and traceability of foods. And so the blue ocean end goal idea for this is to be able to have a steak on your plate and use potentially an iPhone or whatever sensing device to basically track your meat from birth to slaughter, so that the consumer knows exactly the health history and where it's been, but also it's kind of important from a safety perspective as well, as import-export continues to increase on the food side. So just wanted to give the plant-based aspect of agriculture a little bit of time, because I talked about animal-based mainly because that's where our space is, but it's very consistently similar between animal health and crop-based agriculture. So the demand for crop yield is the same and will increase in the future as animal health will. And again, we have a decrease in natural resources. And with petroleum costs increasing, we can only expect the cost of fertilizers and pesticides to increase. So again, very consistent nanotechnology that will allow for controlled delivery or smart delivery of chemicals will be beneficial, as well as diagnostics. So I've gone over, but I think I started late. To conclude, I think I've shown you that there are many challenges that exist in agriculture. I think the most important is that with those challenges, we do have a social responsibility to provide a way to continue to feed the world. And it will only, the pressure for that will only grow as more people occupy the planet. The past has shown us that technology has increased the efficiency and productivity of agriculture, both on the animal side as well as the crop-based side. So if we learn from the past, then we need to start relying on technology to further improve agriculture to meet the global food demands in the next 40 years. And hopefully we can find ways for nanotechnology to do that. So.
What might be the top 3 targets for animal health detection sensing? I talked about it. Is it the hormones, or is it like what might be for animal health?
Do we mean diagnostics or just in general?
I guess diagnostics.
Diagnostics? I would say on the food safety side, a diagnostic that could, in a timely manner, detect some of the E. coli would be number 1. Right now, the producer has to wait 48 hours to get a read, and oftentimes they're false positive. And so while they're waiting that time, the 48 hours, they're losing quality of the beef. But also there's a lot of beef that's sent away in order to sell that beef, it has to be cooked, and then it's sent away to either ground beef that's pre-cooked or to dog food. And with those false positives, they lose a lot. They basically lose money when it's sold that way anyway. So that's probably, not to mention the human health aspect of it, that's number 1. Number 2 would probably be something around reproductive detection for dairy. I would say that on an individual animal basis, the dairy cow is the most profitable for us. And so if we can better regulate that, that would be key. So those are the 2 main ones.
As an old large animal veterinarian who's treated a lot of cattle in my life, you mentioned about targeted drug delivery. And you mentioned the smart drug delivery from the standpoint of temporal control. You control when you deliver. I can see more, I don't say important, but anytime you're giving therapeutics to a 600-pound animal, the amount of quantity of drug that you have to deliver that animal is significant. If you can engineer in the technology through surface receptors or whatever, such that that antibiotic or whatever go right to the site of infection, such that it doesn't have to distribute around the whole body. The quantity of drug you have to use is infinitesimally smaller, which, I mean, you have to make it cost effective, obviously, for production environment, but it takes away a lot of your residue issues too, from the
Yeah.
standpoint of food safety.
Absolutely. As well as a reduction in antibiotic use and potentially less stress on the antibiotic resistance issues. I agree 1,000%. Developing one right now where 10 mils is basically the maximum injection volume that you can give, but more drug is needed, so we're just over-concentrating the formulation. It gets really thick and viscous and difficult to inject, so I absolutely agree.
So for sensing, for diagnostic, there's a difference between the live animal sensing versus after it's slaughtered, right? So in the live animal, in terms of individuals or taking a sample across a group of cows or birds or whatever, how does that work? You know, are there major needs about sensing something in live animals?
I would say that individual animal sensing would be, in my mind, limited to beef cattle, and dairy cows. When you talk about individual animals for birds and for swine even, it's a lot more difficult to deal with. Maybe swine when it comes to the earlier years and vaccinations, but yeah, I would put our focus on beef cattle and the respiratory diseases because that's hugely detrimental.
How else are other companies kind of exploring efficiency of increasing the protein of one animal? Is it mostly just feed additives, or are they also looking at other nanotechnology and genetic engineering type of methods?
Yeah, I think that it spans all of those that you mentioned. We have a lot of nutritionists in our organization that are working on different enzyme technologies, whatever they can do in the rumen to make the amount of feed that goes in most efficient for the amount of meat produced. And I would say the one thing I didn't mention is that in terms of pharmaceutical industry as well as the animal health drug industry, a lot of our discovery, we rely on collaborations with academia, small biotech, small pharmaceutical companies. It's no more the traditional pharmaceutical industry way of thinking where they have their own discovery outfit and rely just on their internal discovery to turn out molecules that could potentially have a success. It's becoming much more common now to rely on the entire world to give those hits, so there's a higher probability of moving things forward. So with the industry as it is, nothing's really off the table. It's no longer just a small molecule discovery.
Okay. Questions? Let's thank all the speakers and